Oh, I'm sorry. It's happening. Russell's Reserve 13. Let's do it. What's up, folks? I am Jason C. from the Master Drum, and today we have one of my most anticipated releases of 2021. It's the 13-year-old cask strength limited edition Russell's Reserve from Wild Turkey. Yup, it's happening. Let's give it a review here on the Master Drum. Yeah. So the Russell's Reserve brand was born in 2000 to celebrate the relationship between father and son, Kentucky Bourbon Hall of Famer Master Distillers Jimmy and Eddie Russell. Combined, more than 101 years of combined whiskey mastery between them. Russell's Reserve is the premium Wild Turkey product line that includes 4 core whiskey expressions, including Russell's Reserve 6-year-old rye, Russell's Reserve single barrel rye, Russell's Reserve 10-year-old bourbon, and Russell's Reserve single barrel bourbon. Now, Russell's Reserve Single Barrel is one of my favorite all-time go-tos in general, and not just because it's Wild Turkey, which you guys know I love, but because it's just got a lot of stats that bourbon chasers look for. Single barrel, non-chill filtered, bottled at 110 proof with 115 entry proof, which means there's pretty much very minimal dilution, affordable at only 50 to 60 bucks, widely available, typically between 8 and 9 years old, consistent, and also available in single barrel store pick options. But now the Wild Turkey Russell's Reserve brand has another family member, this 13-year-old cask strength limited edition bourbon. This is also non-chill filtered and bottled at 114.8 proof. Crafting Russell's Reserve 13-year-old turned out to be one of my most rewarding experiences as a distiller, said Eddie Russell, who celebrates an astounding 40 years of bourbon making at the Wild Turkey Distillery this year. This release embodies our commitment to creating uniquely satisfying flavors, and hands down, it's one of our most rare bourbons. Russell Reserve 13-year-old is available in the United States in limited quantities with an MSRP of $70 for a limited time only, so keep an eye out. So real quick, I want to thank my friend Mackenzie in Tennessee for finding this this bottle for me. Word around the street that it was dropping late last week in Tennessee, and I asked her, hey, call around some stores, see if you could find this specific bottle. Lo and behold, she got me one. Got it here the next day. I was trying it last night for the first time, did a couple pours. I left a little bit in the glass overnight to see what that would do. So I actually have that glass sitting right over there, which we'll bring in to compare on the nose. So let's go to the fresh pour first, see what we get. First thing that jumps out of the glass, honestly, is angel share. If you've ever been into a warehouse, a bourbon warehouse, and you get the rick house smells, the angel share, the beautiful sweet oak, that's the first thing that jumped out of the glass for me. One of the notes that I did not get right away, but is now starting to come to the forefront, is a little bit of a milk chocolate note. Very vanilla, a lot of, vanilla frosting type notes. You definitely get some spice here, some cinnamon, some allspice. One of the more unique notes I get on this is like a slightly medicinal grape note. So if you've ever had like some Eagle Rare store picks and you get that like grapey note to it, it's very reminiscent of that a little bit. Ton of creme brulee. You get just like charred brown sugars. There's a smoke aspect to it that you get from that. And remember, Wild Turkey uses that No. 4 alligator char, which they kind of use as a marketing term on a lot of their bottles. But you definitely get some like a smoked cherry note a little bit, smoked cherry, smoked grape, however you want to kind of discern that. There's definitely a nuttiness to it. Yeah, it's a lot of just like sweet oak, butterscotchy mixed with grape goodness. Just a phenomenal nose. All right, so this is the overnight pour. So I left a little bit in the glass overnight. Now this is something I like to do, especially with higher aged bourbons. I recommend you guys doing it too at home. If you're trying a pour of a new bourbon, especially something that's like 10 years or older, leave a little bit in the glass. Leave a little bit in the glass like that overnight and come back to it the next day just to compare noses and see what it does. That's a little trick I learned from Nancy Fraley, who said to do that. Yeah, when you do that, you definitely get more of that smoky oak characteristic in the, you know, the overnight pour. A little bit of that grapiness is coming out. You still get the vanilla, but I think what you get mostly is it turns to like almost like a sweet tobacco type note when you kind of leave it out like this. Yeah, there's more. It's like a tobacco, like a sweet tobacco smoke char note that really jumps out of the glass. You know, when you compare it to a fresh pour. All right, here we go. Cheers, everybody. First thing you notice on this, the first thing that I noticed was the spice character. It is spicy, and I don't mean in an alcohol forward way. Sometimes you could, again, I say it a lot, you can mistake an alcohol for spice or vice versa. This is all spice. This is like black pepper, red pepper, just a lingering spice that you feel immediately on the front of the palate. It's the first thing. I usually take a little sip, I let it just linger right on the front of my tongue just to see if I get that tingling aspect, and it's there and it's staying. Second thing you notice is the creaminess of it. It's very, very full, very creamy, very viscous, and the first sip, the thing you kind of hit the most with is like this big burst of creme brulee, and followed by that like smoked cherry, like almost like a maple like syrup type aspect to it. It's crazy. Let's go for another sip. Second sip always brings a bourbon or a whiskey back down to earth here, because the first sip's always just really intense, delicious. Second sip, a lot of those same sweet flavors are there, but they do mellow out a little bit. But the one thing that lingers, the one thing that just stays, is this lingering, continuous spice. It's really intense. It's absolutely amazing. This has, I talk about sometimes bourbons having and whiskeys having a finish, like an after finish. This has it. Once you swallow it and you feel like the spice is gone, it comes back and it just lingers. I equate it to like Pop Rocks. Have you ever had Pop Rocks and you get like that effervescent like tingliness that was going on in your mouth when you ate Pop Rocks? This is what you kind of get on the back of the palate. Go for another sip. All right, creme brulee up front. Again, mixed with that spice. The grapey, smoky cherry note comes through as well. Mid palate. Little slight nuttiness is there as well. I don't know if there's enough to call out like a nutty profile to it, like an almond or something like that, but there is like a slight nuttiness going on here as well. That milk chocolate note makes itself to be known a little bit towards the right before the finish, right before that spice kicks in. Get a little nice punch of milk chocolate. It's extremely velvety. Again, that grapey, cherry, char, smoke note is still there. A little bit of that maple candy as well. One more sip here. I think the biggest standouts here for this particular bottle is the viscosity of it. It's so damn creamy, and the spice, and the combination of that, you know, the creme brulee, like that vanilla custard, vanilla frosting, the burnt brown sugar. Then you combine that with a little bit of like a grape / cherry, like smoky note. You know, you add some spice to all that. It really just is a really nice experience from front to back. One last sip here. Take the best Russell's Reserve store pick that you may have or have ever tasted, but amp those flavors up to, 15. All right, all those sweet flavors, the viscosity, just amp it all up to about 15, and then marry it with some rare breed. The spiciness of rare breed and that lingering spice finish that it has, you put those two bottles together, it's like those two bottles just met up somewhere, got it on, and made that. All right, one last sip. All right, so I'll say what I really think for the final breakdown here, but as far as the whole experience, front of the palate, good amount of spice, a lot of creme brulee, vanilla frosting. As soon as it hits mid palate, you get a lot of that grape cherry smoke, a little bit, maybe like a maple candy chocolate thing happening right before the finish kicks in. And then on the finish, you get all that spice, but that spice is not just, solely on the finish. You get the whole thing from, I'm telling you, if you guys get to pour this, take a sip and just leave it on the front of your tongue. You can feel all those spice notes kick in. It kind of stays there from the front to the back of the palate. It's got a nice lingering spice. I just want to make you could just kind of sip this slowly, and the spice lingers there enough that you don't have to keep going back to it, which is like what I think a lot of other bourbons that I don't like have that problem. There's just not enough interesting going on in the finish that you got to keep going to it. I mean, maybe that's the point, but I want to sit and enjoy my bourbon. It's a great bourbon. Let's go to the final breakdown to get my final thoughts. All right, guys, we're at the final breakdown here. So let's do price first. Price is $70. Great price, I think, for what you get in this bottle. Let's do secondary price. So secondary pricing, the first bottle I saw in secondary went for $350. Wow. This is not a $350 bourbon. I would suggest that wait a little bit if you're on secondary, maybe looking for this. Wait a little bit for these to come down. The first bottle up is always super, super high. I would imagine this would get down to about hopefully $250. So we'll see what happens, on secondary. Availability will be limited on this, like most new releases from any distillery. But, luckily, Wild Turkey does have very good distribution nationally. It's just a matter of how many of these that they got out to the market. So we just saw this hit, let's see, Tennessee last week. I think some hit Indiana the week before. I think Virginia got some. So as these start trickling out to different states, keep an eye out for it if you want to try to get one at retail. Value for this, I'm going to say great. I think it's a great value. 13-year-old barrel proof. I would put this right up there with, like the Elijah Craig barrel proofs. Very high value. Great price if you could find it. The problem that makes this a little bit, tricky when you're talking about, value is, this bottle's probably more rare. Remember, Elijah Craig barrel proofs come out 3 times a year. You have more of a shot to get that than you would this. But again, if you're looking at just retail alone, for $70 for this bottle, super high value. What's the most I pay for this? Now, this might surprise you a little bit because I don't think this is nearly a $200, $300 bourbon. It's damn good for what it is, but I just don't see it as something. It's not like drinking unicorn tears or something. It's very good, especially if you love Wild Turkey. But I probably wouldn't go higher than $125 to $150 for this. I would probably just go past $100 just because it's limited and just because it's Wild Turkey. Remember, that's me, because I love Wild Turkey's flavor profile. But, for someone out there that's not too crazy about Wild Turkey but does want this just to have a bottle and just to try it, I probably wouldn't go too much more than $100 for this. Now, is it a recommend? Yes, for me it is, because I happen to love Wild Turkey, but I think overall as a bourbon itself, what's in the bottle, what you're getting, it's absolutely delicious. The combination of flavors that I described earlier, everything you're getting, the viscosity of it, but I still don't think it's, maybe I did want to be completely super wowed by it, and while I may be close to that, I don't think it's a bourbon that's gonna, that absolutely blows you away. Again, if you love Russell Reserve single barrels or Russell Reserve single barrel store picks and you like that flavor profile, it's those, like a really good pick, but amped up to about 15 or 20. Add some rare breed spiciness to it, and that's what you have in this bottle. It's really delicious, but I wouldn't go crazy spending tons of money for this one. Like I said, if you could find it at retail or close to retail, it's definitely worth the grab. This might be the first year. We'll see what happens with the Elijah Craig barrel proof C batch. But remember, with the ECBPs, you have 3 times a year to grab one, and so you have more of a chance to get those over this. But this so far is already ahead of the first 2 Elijah Craig barrel proof releases that I've tried in 2021. So we'll see how the rest of the year shakes out, but I'm absolutely in love with this bottle. If you could find one for close to retail or try one, I definitely think you'll absolutely love it. All right, guys, well, I hope you enjoyed this review for the brand new Russell Reserve 13-year single barrel bourbon from Wild Turkey. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the subscribe button below. Please hit the like button. If you haven't yet, find me on Instagram, find me on Twitter. Let me know if you've had this yet, if you've gotten a pour. Did you get the same notes I got? What you're willing to spend on something like this. And as I always say, it's not about the whiskey, it's the people you share it with. Leave a comment, let me know how you liked the video, and I will see you next time on the Master Drum. Take care, everybody.